Class hasn't even started yet for many students in Ontario, and yet several schools are already reporting COVID-19 cases among their staff. This is obviously raising concerns about the potential for major outbreaks when school doors do open for good. For more on this, we're joined by epidemiologist Dr. Raywat Deonandan. Thank you so much, doctor, for taking the time for us. When you hear, just right now, a handful of cases in a number of municipalities across Ontario. How alarming is that to you?
It's not really alarming. It was kind of expected. We expected to have cases pretty fast. Keep in mind that the cases that we've detected now aren't the result of school openings, they're the result of things that happened a couple of weeks ago. So I'd start to pay attention a couple of weeks from now to see how these school openings have manifested in the data stream.
Now, as we look ahead to the beginning of school and really all these back to school plans, are you confident with the province's back to school reopening?
Confident is not the word I would use. I am optimistic because that's my nature. We have done what we can. We could have done more. In particular, smaller class sizes would have been preferable. But keep in mind, the number one way to keep schools safe and open is to drive the caseload in the community as low as possible. Across the province, the caseload is pretty low. It is climbing up, which is concerning, but it's still low. And so if we're going to open, now is probably a good time to try it. But fingers crossed, everybody must remain vigilant and everyone must do their part, which means distancing and mask wearing and all that other stuff so that the caseload and incident rate remains as low as possible.
Now, as we know, the numbers across the country do vary from province to province. And at the risk of putting you on the spot, is there a province that you look at and say, okay, this is a good model for what Ontario should have or should be aiming towards?
Well, for the longest part, BC was the leader in this pandemic. Their response was quick. They had strong public health leadership. Their communications was very good as well. They've been struggling these last few weeks. The maritime provinces have had consistently low case numbers, and that's due to a lot of geographical and cultural and population dynamic advantages. So there really isn't a model to follow, especially for Ontario and especially for the GTA, which is a world-class urban center. I would rather look to larger urban centers around the world like Madrid or London or New York to look at what their trajectories have been to manage the Toronto case. So in general, we're doing well. So.
Where does the responsibility lie for parents in mitigating the risk and possible transmission? Because as we know, kids get sick all the time for various reasons. And, is it realistic really to ask parents to keep their kids at home for 2 weeks with any slightest sign of an illness?
Well, keeping symptomatic cases out of the system is pretty important. That means keeping anyone who is sneezing or coughing or has got a fever, because they're likely to, if they haven't got symptoms, they can at least project symptoms. They can confuse the situation further. Now, I understand there's going to be some issues with keeping kids out of the system too long. Parents have to take time off of work, and kids are always having sniffles or something. So this has to be a society-level endeavor. Employers have to be on board with offering sick days to workers. The province has to support employers towards that extent. So everybody has a role to play. I can't stress that enough. So the more we keep symptomatic people out of schools, including the adults and teachers and everybody else, the less likely we're going to have transmission in schools and the more likely we can keep schools open.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, but obviously incredible insight. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Raywat Deonandan. Always appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you.